earlier, aside HR, we also provide business solutions, provide entrepreneurship solutions, provide training programs, as well as talent management solutions. So you can look us up on our website at your convenience. I'm your host for today, and my name is Nehemiah James. So our topic for today, training evaluation and return on investment program. Training evaluation and return on investment program. Just before I hand over to our facilitator for today, we have a few session protocols. I would like us all to kindly mute our audios and turn off our videos, except when we are called upon by the facilitator. If we have questions, should we have questions, comments, concerns, it can be typed in the chat section. There would also be a period after the session where the facilitator will inquire of our questions. Okay, so to our facilitator for today. Our facilitator for today is Oluwatoyin Williams Idem. So Oluwatoyin is an experienced human resource professional. She's a psychometric career counselor. By education, she studied industrial relations and personnel management. She's also a certified, like I said, human resource professional. She's an expert in talent management. She's an expert in learning and development, as well as a senior human resource professional at the People Impact Company. So please join me to welcome our facilitator for today, Mrs. Oluwatoyin. If you can hear me, Ma, you have the floor now. Thank you for joining us, Ma.
Thank you very much, Nehemiah. It was nice to have you introduce this session. And thank you all to everybody that is joining in this afternoon. I'm really pleased to be here. So we're going to start our session in a bit. Nehemiah, if you can stop sharing your screen so that I can share mine.
Yeah, I have.
All right. Please let me know when you see my screen so we can get the conversation started.
Yes, we can see yours.
Oh, you can see my screen now. Fantastic. So like Nehemiah had already mentioned, this is one of the series of P4P webinar and thought leadership series where we talk about different HR subjects that can be used as a springboard for professional development. This afternoon, we would be talking about training, evaluation, and return on investment program. It's quite an interesting topic within the HR space. And that's because a lot of people push back that HR initiatives have value, not that it doesn't have value, it has value, but the value is not quantifiable, it's not measurable. So the ideology behind return on investment as an arm of HR is to try and quantify that value in Naira and Kobo terms or in dollar values so that the rest of the business can understand exactly what is the impact of taking on a training or taking on a learning and development initiative. So what will be our objective for today? Our objective for today is that at the end of this session, we are going to support you to be able to understand how to measure the impact of whatever training programs you're running in your various organizations, how to be able to analyze return on investment on employee training programs, how to interpret that return on investment in terms of should management continue to invest in these programs or not. So I'm sure that you're excited as I am, because in this session, we're going to break down this big topic that talks to return on investment and properly understand how to position the hard work that we do in HR to be able to give the value that is required. All right, so let's get to it. As much as possible, I'd love to make this session very interactive. So please feel free to use your reactions Feel free to also use your comment section to give questions, comments, or just general feedback on how you're enjoying the session, or if you have questions that you want us to respond to. Okay, so that being said, let us talk about training evaluation. What is training? When someone says training, what does that mean to you? Training really involves learning. And learning implies that there is something to be done, something new to learn, either to unlearn or to get better at. So when you're going into a learning session or a training session, and during this session, you would find me using those two words interchangeably, learning and training. The idea behind those two initiatives is you want things to be done differently. You want to explore alternatives to getting results as you had been getting results in the past, to see, is there any other better way of getting things done? That simply is training. Now, the question is, when you now talk about training, how do you put evaluation in that same sentence? Because in training, you're helping people learn to do something better. Evaluation, you're trying to establish the worth of something. You're trying to understand what's the value, what's the merit of this thing. How do you quantify the change that has happened? That is evaluation. So when you put training and evaluation together, that means you're trying to teach people something new, and then you're trying to understand the worth of what you have just taught them. For example, you're coming to this session, you're going to have to make a decision between so many other things that you could have been doing at this particular time on a Tuesday afternoon versus coming for this training. And that's because you either have thought, you know what, I will learn something new. This is the best use of my time. And you've decided to forego that alternative, whatever it is you were doing or you could have been doing, in order to come for this training. So in this session, we want to be able to help you understand the whole concept behind training and evaluation, and how that can be used to improve our value proposition as HR practitioners. Training evaluation is defined as an attempt to obtain feedback, obtain information on the effects of a training program. With what purpose? So as to assess the value of that training. And this dovetails into being able to use that information that you have gotten to further improve the training. In evaluating, you're trying to measure the change in your participants' skills, knowledge, attitude, job performance, and the quality of training. So by the time you're trying to check what impact does these things have on your training, it's really important for you to be able to identify if your training programs are accomplishing the specific training objectives that you have set for itself. Typically, before you start off on any training or any learning initiative, you want to first identify what the needs are. What does the participant need? Where are they struggling? How can you use that training to support them so that they are not struggling anymore? Being able to clearly identify your training objectives already goes a long way in helping you to assess if the training was properly executed, if the training had the right impact on the participants. That is training evaluation. What is the impact of training evaluation? What does it do for you? I'd like us to talk about that a bit more. Remember, when we started this conversation, we started off by saying that many times in human resources, there is a lot of conversation around HR having an intangible impact in terms of training. So you spend a lot of hours, you ask people to come into class, you prepare a session for them, people will go for these trainings, they'll have a nice time. Prior to COVID, when people travel for trainings, it's almost like a mini vacation. Don't you agree? Because everyone goes out, they have fun, they take pictures, they even do a tour while on training, if the training is outside of Nigeria. But the question is, after all that money has been expended, so think about it, by the time you want to organize training for a couple of people outside of the country, you're going to contact the training body. you're going to contact them in order to find out what the cost of the training is, what the duration is. If it's not within your location, you're going to pay
Apologies, everyone. A little bit of network issues. He will join back in a second.
Hello, everyone. I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Many apologies. The network took me out. Please let me know if you can see my screen now. I'm sharing.
Yes, we can.
Okay, now you can see my screen. So I was discussing the business case behind being able to understand the impact of training evaluation. And I said that if you wanted to sort of do a simulation of how much it would have costed you to send someone on a training outside of Nigeria, you're going to look at the cost for the training program itself. You're going to look at the cost of the person transporting themselves there. You're going to look at the opportunity cost of the person who was supposed to be at work but had gone for this training. And you now look at all that expense when you aggregate it together. By the time the individual comes back into the company, you want to just be sure that whatever amount of money has been spent on that training is impactful. Otherwise, all of that amount of money would have gone to waste. Isn't that right? So it's very important that when assessing your trainings, you're able to understand how much has been expended, but first understand if the amount that has been expended is being expended for the right trainings. It's absolutely important that you are able to evaluate if a training program is achieving its aims and objectives. And as such, that kind of evaluation provides useful information about the effectiveness of that training or the design of future programs. If, for example, you send someone on a training, maybe you send them on a sales training, and prior to the sales training, you had given them a target of maybe, you want them to
Hello, Twain. Hello. Twain, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you.
All right, I'm just going to reshare my screen again. Please kindly confirm when you see my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, thank you. So I was talking about why training evaluation is important. And it's important because you want to find out if a training program has been effective in achieving the aims and objectives that you set. By the time you evaluate the training, you are able to see how to modify future trainings. Are there any particular feedback or input that such evaluation gives? Yes, such evaluation would give management the input needed to modify or update future training programs. It will also enable us in human resources to be able to collect useful data about the success or failures of training program. And that will be on the basis of data. Now, data drives reporting in the sense that if someone says, you speak to someone and they say, oh, the training was fine. To what extent is the training fine? Is it a 5/5 that the training was excellent? Is it 1/5 that training is abysmal? You really want to be able to get particular data on trainings so that in the future, you would be able to use that data to manage future offerings that the organization might be looking at. So what is training effectiveness? Let's talk a bit about training effectiveness. Training effectiveness refers to the degree to which the people who were being trained were able to learn and apply the knowledge and skills that they have acquired in the training program. Now, the effectiveness of a training depends largely on factors such as attitude, interest, ability, willingness, values, and expectations of the trainees and the training environment as well. So let me give you an example of what I mean. Imagine you were coming to this session and in your mind, you were like, oh, this session is just going to be a waste of my time. So you came with that mindset. Now, with the frequent internet interruptions, you would have gotten more and more upset that, oh my God, I knew this training was going to be a waste of my time. So it's very, very important that when you want to assess the effectiveness of a training, attitudes and the interest of the people who are attending the training to a large extent influences the effectiveness of that training. Because if, let's say, an individual was attending this training and they already had a mindset that they could not learn anything new, there's absolutely nothing I'm going to tell them that will be new to them. At every point in time that I'm talking, they will be telling themselves, oh, obviously that's not a new fact. Why is she saying that? That doesn't even make sense. Have you ever been in a situation like that yourself? When you lost interest in what the person was trying to tell you, everything they told you probably didn't, if it entered your ear through one side, it would have gone out through the other because of your attitude at that point in time. So by the time one sits back as maybe the organizer of a training program and you want to evaluate the effectiveness of a training, you need to please also take into consideration the attitude, the interest, the ability, willingness of the participants to learn something new. A training will definitely be much, much more effective if the trainees are eager to learn, if they are interested in the subject matter, if they came to class with the mindset that whatever it is I learn in this session, I want to apply it. Automatically, that in itself will make the training much, much more effective than if somebody came to class with a very closed mind. Other things that would help evaluate the effectiveness of a training program could be things like the content of the training program. So for example, this training that you're looking at, imagine if all you saw was text. There was no pictures. I wasn't citing any example. It would easily make you tired. You would easily get irritated. You would feel like, you know what, this is really a waste of my time. But if I give you examples, if I speak to you in a way that I use words that you can understand, I put pictures up on my slides, I ensure that the training is not boring. All of those factors, to a large extent, will help to make the training much more effective. So now I'd like us to talk about very quickly an evaluation model. This evaluation model is called Kirkpatrick's training evaluation model, and it has 4 levels to it. How many of us has heard about this evaluation model before? So how many of us have heard about this training model before? Okay, so let me tell you about this model. This model really evaluates training at 4 levels. The first one is at reaction. The second one is at learning. The third one is at impact. And the fourth level is at results. Now, at the base level, which is reaction, the base question there is, did the learners enjoy the training? So for example, sorry, 1 second. Let me just check what's making that noise. 1 second. There's a noise in my background that I didn't want to affect what you were hearing. So as I was saying, there are 4 levels of evaluation. There are 4 levels to this evaluation method. The first one is the reaction. And at the reaction level, you're asking, do the participants, did they enjoy the training? If people enjoy a training, they won't hide. That's the truth. Reaction is very basic and it's quite prompt and it's quite direct. When people don't enjoy a training, when they feel like it was a waste of their time, if they did not learn anything, they would immediately want to say so. Oh, we had a terrible time at this training. We didn't learn anything. It was horrible. People will give that feedback. The second level is learning transfer. At this point, you're asking yourself, did any learning occur? Were people able to learn anything? In learning, remember, to say that someone learned something, that means that they're learning something they didn't know before, or they have a new way of applying old knowledge. So learning can occur at 2 levels. Either you're learning something new, totally new, or you're learning something that you have known, but you're learning a new way of applying what you have known. It's extremely important that when it comes to training, you're able to. Please, 1 second. What's that noise, please? To move so that I can move away from that noise. Please, 1 second. We'll be quieter from here. Many apologies about that. There was a noise in the background that was quite unhelpful. Okay, so I was talking to you about this Kirkpatrick's training evaluation model and the fact that the model has 4 levels to it. The first level is that of reaction. And at that level, you're asking, really, did the trainees, did they enjoy the learning? The second level is at the level of learning. At this point, you're trying to probe, did learning transfer occur? Did they understand the main points, the objectives, the content of the training program? Then at level 3, you're talking about impact. Did the training change behavior? If part of the objectives of the training was to effect a change in behavior, let me give you an example of what I mean by a change in behavior. So let's take, for example, following on my earlier example of a sales team that had been sent on a sales training. And that may be because prior to the training, they had been meeting their targets only by 20%. So if you had told them, please sell 100 of these items per month, they were only able to sell 20 at a time. Now, you sent them on this training as the HR business partner for that sales team. And when they came back at the first level, which is that of a reaction, you're asking them, did you enjoy the program? Oh, they say, oh, yes, they did, or no, they did not. You want to understand if the program was even worth their time in terms of, did they find the content engaging? Did they, at any point in time, feel like they were learning, they understood, or they enjoyed the program? That will be at level 1. At level 2, you're looking at learning. Did they learn anything new? So remember, this is your sales team. Prior to now, they have been selling. The only challenge was that they were not selling enough. When they go for the training, you now want to ask, did learning transfer, or did they learn anything new? Did they learn anything that can be applied on the job? Now, when they come back and you move up to level 3, where you're talking about the impact of that training, Are they able to sell more? Impact and results. Are they, based on the training that they had attended, are they now able to meet their targets? Prior to now, remember, they were meeting only 20% of their targets. But after the training, did that move up to 30%? Did that move up to 50% in order for you to be able to say, oh, whatever it is that they learned in their training session was really impactful, is giving us tangible results as a company, because now this team, prior to the training, they were only able to sell and meet 20% of their targets, but having gone on the training and they've come back, they are now pushing 40% to 50%. That tells you that there is a clear impact of that training on the sales team. So now let's delve into it. I'd like us to talk about this a bit more, because the most important part of this is you have to be able to, first off, evaluate your own trainings and demonstrate the impact of that training on your job. So generally, the criteria that we would use to evaluate training is, one, reaction, like I said, if they acquired new knowledge, if their behavior has been modified. Are there specific job-related parameters that you want to measure, like in the sales of the sales team, moving up from 20% to 40% to 50%? That's the kind of training criteria that's kind of evaluation criteria that you really want to be looking at. Now, before you do an evaluation, and again, just to add, you don't wait till the end of the training before you evaluate it. By then, it's already a bit too late for you to catch some things. Let me tell you what I mean. Before you go into a training, you want to assess and just understand where our people are in their knowledge. How much of this will be new material to them? When they are reviewing these materials, would they be really engaged? Would they be able to apply? For you to do that, you do a pre-training evaluation. In your pre-training evaluation, your aim is to find out one thing. What are the expectations of the trainees from the training program? What exactly are they looking to learn? What do they understand before now? When you do this level of evaluation, it allows you to be able to modify the training curriculum in such a way that the objectives of the training program is aligned to the objectives of the attendees. Remember what I said in the beginning. If you're attending a session and you've already made up your mind that this session is a waste of my time, what is going to happen is that there's absolutely nothing in that session that will make you feel like you've learned anything. So it's very important that in your pre-training evaluation, you want to find out just exactly how much does the individuals who are going to be attending the training, how much do they know? You also want to find out what exactly is their objectives for attending. Are they attending because they already know the subject and they are just coming, or there is a particular area of the subject that they do not understand? And as such, in addressing those needs, you're able to capture what exactly it is that the participants are coming to learn. You can weave that into your training program. There is a training evaluation form that you would use in order to be able to identify what exactly is it that people are coming to learn. I beg your pardon. What exactly is it that people are coming to learn? If that thing that they are coming to learn, if it's going to be very impactful, here is a sample form. During the training, the right thing to do is also to try and assess how people are progressing in terms of their knowledge. And what happens is that when you're able to get this information, you can use it to quickly enable mid-course corrections. And that would help that, imagine if someone had started a training at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, like today's training, and you're able to do some sort of evaluation at 1:20, at 1:15, or even at 1:30, 30 minutes into the session. It would help you understand if the training so far has been very theoretical, if the training so far has been very impactful, if the training so far has things that people can immediately apply. I'll give you another example. Remember, when we started, we talked about the sales team. It's easy for us to pick on a team like sales because their results are in naira and kobo. It's either they are meeting their targets or they are not meeting their targets. But when it comes to other types of other disciplines within the organization, other units, you really want to make sure that whatever it is that you're training people on, whilst in the middle of the training, you're getting feedback on application. Will they find it easy to apply? Will it be difficult for them to apply? If they try to apply, would it be easy for them to get feedback on the application? Remember, the more practical oriented your trainings are, the easier it will be for people to apply. And the easier it will be for you to get feedback. The feedback will be very useful in modifying the content of the program, in modifying the pace of the program. Maybe the facilitator was going too fast, or maybe the facilitator was going too slow. Maybe the way the facilitator was delivering the program was boring. All of that feedback you would get, and that would help you to ensure that going forward, you position your trainings to be much more impactful. Now, at the end of the training, you then decide to have something that you can use to assess the overall impact of the training, which would include one, reaction. Did people enjoy it? Learning, did they learn something new? Behavior, is the training going to change their behavior? And then results, are they going to be able to produce new results as a result of having attended your training? So I'm going now into the comment section, and I just want to check something very quickly, just to assess how much you have understood from what we have discussed so far. What are the 3 levels? No, let me not use levels, let me use criteria. What are the 3 criteria or 3 ways of evaluating a training? I'm going into the comment section now to see if there are comments about that. So I've given the bird away by saying that there are even 3 levels. Now tell me the 3. I'm looking at the comment section now. Tell me the 3. The first one is pre-training. The second one is yes, I'm seeing some comments in there. Okay. Hi, everyone. Are you following? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
I'm
hear
getting
you.
some. Oh, you can hear me? Okay, I'm getting some feedback from here. I'm thinking it must be my network. Okay. And then post-training. So post-training, you're looking at how much of the training has been impactful. You're looking at reaction, you're looking at learning, you're looking at behavior, and then more importantly, how people are able to apply. Okay, thank you very much. How people are able to apply. So let's now delve deeper into these 4 levels. You know, we said reactions. Well, let's try and talk about that a bit more. Reactions. Sorry, the screen is flipping. When it comes to reaction, what are you trying to check here? You're trying to see and measure the degree of satisfaction of the trainees with the training program, the topic in itself, the content, the environment of the training, the methods of the training, the pace of the facilitator. When you evaluate a training using reaction, the outcome of that is you want to try to strengthen the areas that people reported on. So let me give you an example. If this training was physical, or if this training, okay, even in its virtual state, this training was engaging. This training had a lot of participants commenting, and we were regularly checking comment section to get people's comments. We were taking questions. People felt engaged and being part of the training. Automatically, that tells you, if that score was very high, that tells you that you want to continue using that method. But if, for example, the reaction was negative in the sense that people didn't feel engaged, people didn't feel like anybody sought their opinion or involved them as the training was going on, that tells you that that is an opportunity, an area of improvement. Okay? So it's very important that I highlight two opposite reactions for you. The first one is that if maybe you evaluate a training on the basis of reaction and you got a really negative reaction or get negative feedback. Let's say people said, oh, we didn't like the training, it wasn't interesting, it wasn't engaging, nobody asked us to, comment or be a part of the program. The impact of that is that going forward, it might be a challenge for them to come for another training because most people will be like, well, the last one I attended, it was very boring. It wasn't interesting. I wasn't even engaging. I didn't learn anything new. On the basis of reaction, people could easily turn down future training programs. However, just because people say, oh, a training was fantastic, that in itself alone as a factor does not give complete information about the effectiveness of a training. Complete information about the effectiveness of a training will only be gotten when you look at all of the 4 levels of training evaluation altogether, not just one by itself. Okay, so that's the information on reaction. Now let's talk about the next one, which is on learning. When you evaluate a training on the basis of learning, you're trying to measure the degree to which the trainees have acquired new knowledge, skill, or competency. Now, remember, I said it's either you're acquiring new knowledge or you're acquiring a better understanding of how to use the knowledge that you have. How can you apply that knowledge in a different way? If the trainer measures the knowledge and skill of trainees before the program and then measures the knowledge and skill of trainees after the program, you will be able to see if there has been any movement, either positive movements or negative movements in learning. But at learning, all you're trying to do is to assess if new knowledge has been derived as a result of the training. Okay? Now, at the level of learning, what are we supposed to check here? Again, you would only be able to validate the level of learning by comparing the before, which is the pre-training evaluation. And you can do this easily. So let me give you an example. Let's use this particular course now, training evaluation and return on investment program. And you gave out a questionnaire to the people in class to say, prior to now, how many of you have heard about return on investment of training programs before? And you ask them to indicate, yes, I have heard, or no, I have not heard. If you have a lot of no, I have not heard, maybe out of a team of 10 people, 7 people are saying, no, I've not heard of it. So only 3 people have heard of it. You know that, okay, you have to spend some time in the training to define and to give them a general background because they've not heard of this topic before. When people indicate, oh, I've heard of it, I know it, I even know the formula, then that tells you that possibly what they are looking for is how to apply. So in being able to do a pre-training assessment or a pre-training evaluation and comparing it with the results of a post-training evaluation, it's easy to be able to see where the improvement should be or what are the gaps of the people in the session. Now, you also want to assess training at the level of behavior. Has a behavioral change occurred? Has their training been modified? If, for example, most of what is learned during a training cannot be used or deployed on the resources, maybe because of on the job, maybe because of lack of resources, maybe because of the lack of a conducive environment, one cannot say that the training is ineffective because the challenges at ensuring behavioral change is not as a result of the training program. It's as a result of factors that are outside of the training program. But if, for example, the environment is similar to an ideal environment that will make it easy to apply the training, then you can say that definitely the environment has helped to facilitate the transfer and application of learning for that particular training. Let me give you an example of what I mean, because again, I want this to be as practical as possible. So let's go back to the sales team. For this sales team that were not meeting their numbers before, you have identified that you want to send them on a training. On sending them on the training, you now find that actually they were given maybe a 10-step system for closing a sale, which is you call the prospect, you introduce your business, you tell them what benefits the product is going to have for them, maybe personally or their business, and then you ask them if they'll be interested in a trial for 14 days. That is the new process they learned from their training. Now imagine that this team gets back to the office and very excitedly they were telling their manager that, oh, we've learned a new way of closing sale and sales calls. And then manager says, okay, not a problem. Tell me about this new way. And they go out to say, okay, when we do this, we talk to the client. After talking to the client, we ask the client, this is the price if you can get this. This is the benefit of this product on your business. And then we tell the client that you can have a 14-day trial for free trial. And then the manager says, I'm really sorry. You can't use that kind of closing pitch in this organization. It's either clients buy or they don't buy. We don't even bother to tell them what the benefits are. Rather, we just direct them to the website. In that situation, is the environment permissive to allowing the trainees apply what they have learned? No. The answer to that is no. The environment is not permissive, it's not conducive in order for them to apply what they have learned. So in that environment, it will be difficult to achieve change behavior because there are people who are much more high up the rank who are saying, no, that's not how we do things. Now, because a lot of people, because they are saying that's not how we do things, and the trainees have learned how to do things in another way, they will not be able to achieve any behavioral change. So it's very important that when assessing the ROI of the training and you are looking at things such as behavioral change, you want to look more closely at the organization to see if there is anything, I beg your pardon, that would hinder participants from being able to apply what they have learned. And those things could be process driven, it could be strategy, it could be just positioning of the organization. You want to be able to help them navigate that so that in your own recording of the ROI on that training, you can see that all of your efforts are yielding value, because if the sales team were doing 20% before, and on the basis of your new training, they are able to hit up to 40 to 50%, you can rightly say that that differential was as a result of your training and the environment being conducive in order to allow people to be able to apply. Okay? So that is at the level of behavior. Now, at the level of results, what do we want to check here? We want to check, although it can be quite difficult, but it's still doable. You want to measure precisely the impact of the training on business performance. Now, remember, business performance or even a business being able to achieve its targets can never be dependent on just one factor alone. It can't. Because there are several factors that control and have an impact on results. Let me go back to that sales example again. You can agree with me that sales example, things are going fine for them as long as their business or their business model does not have any loophole that government regulation can disturb. So imagine if you have a sales team that were selling items that you had imported from another country, and then for some strange reason, there is a ban on importation for that class of products. So you cannot sell it anymore up until when the ban is lifted. And then let's say you had also invested money in your sales team to go and do a sales training. Would you be able to hold them responsible as having not been effective or maybe not assimilating in the training? They've gone to waste their time. Is that what you would say? Of course not, because so many things have affected their ability to achieve results. And if you look at businesses in Nigeria today, even companies wherein you have HR business partners, companies that are much more structured, the economic environment is quite unpredictable. And because of that, it affects the results that they get. This cannot be pinned on training or the lack of training. It's just the economic environment at that time that it is not conducive for training and knowledge transfer to occur. How do you get these figures? Remember, our session today is as practical as possible. How do you get the figures? You get the figures by comparing your before the training episode, before the training, how much were people selling? And then afterwards, how much are they selling? Looking at and reviewing these two buckets of figures will help us to be able to clearly identify if we're making progress or not. Okay? It will help us to identify if they are making progress or not. Then, when you now talk about results such as tangible results. So like in the case of that sales team, if they were making 20% of their budget, of their target before, and now they are able to make maybe 30 to 40%, you want to be very careful in saying, oh, this must have been as a result of the training they attended. Maybe not totally. So any improvement that occurs in an individual after training can be partially attributed to the training, partially, because there are still so many things that affects performance. The attitude of the individual affects performance. Their ability to take on new knowledge affects performance. So these are the things you want to look at when you're trying to evaluate. When you're trying to evaluate a training, you can evaluate it from 4 perspectives. Remember, the first one is that you're evaluating it at the level of satisfaction. Are people satisfied? Are they happy? The next one is you're evaluating it you're evaluating it to see that did people learn? Was there any learning done? Then you now want to look at behavior change. Then you want to look at results, tangible results, if I may add, tangible results. The importance of evaluating a training. A few ones are very common. One of the common ones is that you want to justify the cost that you have spent on the training. In a situation whereby the organization is saying, okay, the most senior person in HR should come and explain to us why are we spending 2.3 million on training right now? Because you have been evaluating your trainings from before, you are able to send proper documents, proper details and data to show the value of that training. Second importance of training evaluation. You want to improve the quality of the training for everybody in general. That means you want to ensure that from when people sign up till after the training and the giving feedback, they are getting premium experience. They are getting premium experience. So you're looking at things from the content development, the content delivery, the arrangement of it, the quality of the facilitator or the lack of quality of the facilitator, the ambience in the room where the training is going to be done. And if it is virtual, hopefully there will not be any internet challenges like we had at the beginning of this training. All of that speaks to the quality of a training in being able to meet the demands set on it. Then you also want to assess the effectiveness of the overall program. Was it really effective? Did it help people? Did it move people from point A to B? The person who took the training, were they competent? Were they clear? Were they timid? Did we need to encourage them? All of this is what will help you to assess what is the effectiveness of the overall program and justify the fact that the amount of money that was expended on the training actually is good value for money. At the end, that's what you're trying to say. So now, let's talk about the principles of a training evaluation. The principles of the training evaluation must be specific. It cannot be vague. You cannot say to do things better. What is to do things better? What are the things that must be done better? What is the meaning of better? You must be able to speak in as clear terms as possible. It must be specific. An evaluation provides the means and focus for whoever is handling your trainings to be able to appraise themselves, to be able to appraise how the trainings were put together, to be able to appraise how to streamline the training going forward or refocus the training going forward, or even scrap the training totally going forward. But evaluation, in order for it to hold water, it must be based on very objective standards. It must be. So that regardless of whoever is in the training, regardless of who is anchoring the training, your evaluation is clear in seeking out what it is you want to see. These are the principles of training evaluation. Now, the next question is, what can be evaluated? What are the parts of the training that can or should be evaluated? There are 3 parts of the training that must be evaluated. The first one is the training plan. How do you evaluate the training plan? You evaluate the training plan by looking at things like the course objectives. What is the objective of this course? For me, the objective of this course that we're handling right now is to be able to help people use ROI calculation to uncover or highlight the impact of their training programs. So first one, course objectives. And remember, it doesn't always have to be in written form. Course objectives, you can, in as much as you capture it down, you're able to record the information in some way. Appropriate selection of participants. If, for example, there is somebody who is known to openly be defiant and argumentative, and in that particular topic that you're training people on, that person has an ongoing conversation that is not finished, would you necessarily want to select that person into an open program? Maybe a one-on-one might be better in order for you to be able to identify what exactly it is does this person need to learn and how best to deliver that learning in a one-on-one session, in a group session, or if it is purely online. We also want to evaluate your plan on time frame. How long will it take us to see feedback from this? Will it take us a year? Will it take us 6 months? How do you evaluate that? And then teaching methods. Was the facilitator friendly? Was the facilitator too fast? Was the facilitator too slow? Was the facilitator just focused on delivering the content of the slides and not helping people to understand the value behind the messaging? You want to be able to evaluate that because you will spend quite a bit of money on training. And even if not, whatever is worth doing well. So time frame, course objectives, selection of participants, and then training methods. That is how you evaluate the plan. Remember, there are 3 things that you can evaluate. You can evaluate the plan, the training plan, you can evaluate the process, and then the product. So now we've talked about the training plan. Let's talk about the process. You want to evaluate planning versus implementation. Were we able to implement all that was planned for the training? Was the training delivered within an appropriate time frame? If we said we're going to start at 1 and we ended up starting at 6 p.m. in the evening, was that appropriate? Did we use time effectively? Did we teach according to the objectives of the teaching, or we strayed and went to every other topic under the head or under the sun? So you really want to ensure that after you have worked hard to put together content, after you have worked hard to maybe select the appropriate people to come to class, you want to ensure that when they come to class, it is very practical to apply. You want to ensure that the people you put in class are people who are hungry for knowledge. Yes, of course, you will start and finish at the right time. If you had allocated 2 hours, you try and ensure you finish an hour 45 or an hour 50 so that you can take questions. Was the teaching according to set objectives? Ensure that whatever was the set objectives was covered in the training curriculum. That is you evaluating the process. Then you want to also look at evaluation by the owner or by the trainer itself. Evaluation by other trainers. You can call in somebody else to say, you know what, please, can you kindly assist us to evaluate this training? Evaluation by the participants. After the training, could you break people out into groups and then let them talk about how impactful the training was for them. It's very important that as HR people, when we send people on trainings, we should try as much as possible to ensure that people are engaged. Otherwise, what now happens is that they will sit through the training, they would have eaten lunch, breakfast, eating brunch as well, tea and biscuits. But when they come back, there is no change. There is simply no change. No change. So now let's move forward. I'd like us to quickly talk about how to calculate ROI. ROI is return on investment. How do you calculate it on training programs, for training programs? How? The traditional ROI formula for training programs is program benefits, which is net benefit, minus the training cost, then divided by the program cost. This ensures that to the last kobo, you are able to account for every amount of money that was expended on the training. When you get that figure, you translate it into percentage by multiplying by 100. Okay? There are two questions, just two questions that ROI calculation of training answers very quickly for us. The first one is that, are trainees getting new knowledge and skills so that they can increase their efficiency or reduce costs in the workplace? You want to check that. Remember, when the business sponsors training, they expect feedback. They expect results. They expect quite rapid results, if I might add. So it's important that as HR people, we understand how to gather the right data, because the problem with data gathering is that you might find that you are inundated with data. There is so much data, then it's a struggle to understand how to use the data to shape a narrative of things improving in an organization. The second thing that the ROI measures is, can we check the cost of this training against the benefits for both the individuals and the organization using a cost-benefit analysis approach? The bottom line is that ROIs are used to justify the expense of a training course, because organizations are constantly looking for how to be much more efficient with their spending. How can they become much effective with their spending so that they are not wasting money? And this, the only way that one will be able to answer that question is by speaking to data. Is by speaking to data. And there are clever ways of speaking to data. Design the right questions. If you are going to look at the process, design the process of review the process to see how else can you frame this question, because that is where most HR people get stuck. There are too many things to want to measure, or they are trying to measure too many things at the same time. Once one is able to justify the cost of a training, it is more likely that that training will be reoccurring, especially if the needs are still reoccurring. Okay. So who should be concerned with using the ROI, which is return on investment calculator? Who? Many times, return on investment will create various ideas on how to use or how to measure many times, because you now start running in different directions. Should we measure the return on investment of A, or should we measure the return on investment of B? What do we focus on? What do we place value on? But this conversation goes from company to company. Because, for example, for organizations that are more of client-facing, they will focus on anything that strengthens their position. They will focus on anything that strengthens their position, anything that will help them to be able to position the need for that training very well going forward. And it's easy to speak to management about this in as much as you have the data. You have the data. Remember, in gathering your data, you really just want to be careful. Otherwise, one can be inundated with data. So how do we use this ROI calculator? How do we use ROI calculator? ROI calculator works best in jobs that are highly structured and their monetary benefits are very, very easy to isolate. Take, for example, a job like sales. In sales, you're given a target. You're going out to meet that target through selling. It is easy to calculate if you were doing well before, if you're doing better now, or you have regressed based on the data that one has. It can be as simplistic as saying that you have data that shows that out of your team of 5 or 6 salespeople, only 2 people are actually pulling their weight. So how do you know that? By looking at the numbers. And that's why for HR people, it's extremely important that you keep your data. Important data that will help you to make decisions, that will help you justify positions with management. It's very interesting that we in human resources need to embrace data more. Embrace data more. So that by the time you want to start measuring the impact of something, you have data as your background to work off. Now let's go into how to calculate this ROI. Who's excited? So before we go into that, let's do a small recap on what we have learned so far. I'm going into the comment section now to see if anyone is able to give us a reminder on what we have learned so far. So I'm going into the comment section now. And the first question I want to ask for this recap is, what are the three levels? Let me not use the word levels. What are the 3 ways to be able to measure training evaluation? At what point? What are the 3 points of training evaluation? I'm looking at the comment section now. I'm expecting to see some comments on the 3 points of training evaluation. We talked about being able to assess training or evaluate training at 3 strategic points of a training. Anyone? 3 points of training evaluation. Let me give you a teaser. The first point is pre-training. Pre-training evaluation. Does anybody remember what the second point is? And the third as well? None? The second one is, yes. Oh, thank you. The results are coming in now. The results are coming in now. Okay, so I can see a post-training evaluation, correct? That's the third one. Can someone tell us what the second one is? Oh, many apologies. Chiamaka says that she's having connection issues. We're sorry to hear about that, but you get the feedback from this one. Oh, thank you so much. I see an answer here, intermediate, fantastic, well done, intermediate. So that means that whilst the training is still going on, you really just want to do a quick evaluation to find out if everything is being understood, if the knowledge is not overwhelming. Any feedback you get at that point, you can immediately use it to reposition while still delivering the program. Thank you very much. Thank you for participating. I enjoyed your answers. Okay, so now let's talk about calculation of return on investment. What's the formula? There's a formula for calculating return on investment. That formula is the net profit, okay? The net profit divided by the total investment. The net profit would be divided by the total investment. Let us see what that means by using this practical example, okay? There is a methodology to calculating this ROI. In 1980, a man called Jack Phillips published a 10-step training evaluation methodology, which is now called the Phillips ROI methodology. Now, let us look at what this methodology looks at. At the base of the Phillips ROI methodology, there is satisfaction. Satisfaction, which is, did we learn? Did we enjoy the training? Interestingly, Phillips ROI methodology was a spin-off of the original Kirkpatrick's training evaluation methodology. Remember, if you saw that one, let me flip back to it. 1 second. This one. The Phillips ROI methodology was based on review of this evaluation model. First one is reaction. Are we excited? Do we give this training a thumbs up? The second one is learning, then impact and results. So if you now move forward, which I'm doing now very quickly, to the Phillips ROI method, you would see a lot of similarity in that. Satisfaction here speaks to the base level for the Kirkpatrick's model. Then learning, impact, results, ROI. ROI means, do you have a positive return on that investment? Is there a positive return on that investment? So each level, at the base level, remember at the base level, you have reaction for Kirkpatrick, and then here is called satisfaction. At this level, you're just trying to gauge, are they happy? Are they unhappy? When you get to the stage of learning, what are you trying to assess? Your assessment is going to be pre-training. Pre-training is that you want to check using surveys. What exactly do people know about the information you're coming to present? How much do they know? Do they know enough to be the teacher? Are they looking for a new way of applying it? Applying this, carrying out this survey before the test or before the training helps you to understand where people are and what their learning gaps are. Then behavior. You want to, at some point in time, understand if the participants are going to use what they have just learned, if they are going to use it in their workplace, if they are going to immediately apply it. And in terms of application, remember, the more practical, simple, understandable. Allow me to repeat that. The more practical, simple, and understandable a material is, the easier it will be for people to understand, the easier it will be for people to deploy. So when working with training providers, as HR practitioners, you want to be just very careful so that they are not coming and speaking using words that are way above everybody's heads, and it is impossible to understand how much more apply. Results is the next one. Results is where you're trying to ensure that the organization's expectation for sending people on that training is met. Let's go back to that easy example of my sales team. If the organization was sponsoring the sales team for this training as a result of their inability to meet targets, it is expected that by the time they finish this training, they should meet their target. That is the organization's expectations. If anything happens that they are not able to meet their target, then the organization feels like that was not money well spent. Okay? That was not money well spent. So how then do you calculate, how then do you use this Phillips ROI methodology? How do you immediately apply it? Remember, our session here is to help you to become immediately comfortable with these terms, is to help you to become able to use it, this ROI methodology, understand it so well, and use it to measure other trainings that you might be happening in the organization. So for the first level, kindly survey the trainees so as to gauge their reaction. And this is very easy. Do you remember the smiley face? Do you remember the smiley face? So you can do 5 faces, and the faces change in expression from extremely happy to crying, which is extremely sad. And just ask participants to circle one. to indicate how they are feeling at the moment. If you consistently see that, or maybe people are ticking the sad emoji, the sad smiley face, you want to find out, could this be as a result of factors that are outside of your control? Or was it the course content, the course methodology, the facilitator, the environment that made them rate the course as being very bad or very poor? So survey them in order to be able to gauge their reaction. That is for reaction or satisfaction. Level 2, measure and assess that learning actually took place. How do you do that? A before and after reading. So take, for example, that in starting this sales course, when they gave me the pre-interview forms to fill, I indicated that I had zero knowledge about sales. By the time that questionnaire is submitted, and maybe there are 5 or 10 of us about that at that level who indicated that in class, the right thing to do would be for the trainer to modify their approach. If they were going to start from, okay, so we all know what sales is, they are going to come to the question, do we know what sales is? I'm hoping that by sharing these practical examples with you, it would be able to give you enough ideas on how to draft and design questionnaires, what criteria are even important to explore. Let's move on to level 3. Level 3, here there was an expansion on the earlier Kirkpatrick's work. And the expansion here encompasses application and implementation. This level 3 studies behavior in the workplace and tries to see how they can make organizations, how they can make it easy for organizations to assess and clearly see the changes that are happening on the job as a result of training and training investments. Okay. At the moment, we have spoken of methods that involved evaluation form, self-reported evaluation form. So for example, if before you start a training, you share a very simple form like that form that we showed you earlier, and you ask people to quickly complete it, maybe on a range of 1 to 5. Tell us how excited are you to be here. Tell us what it is you want to learn. Tell us what it is you're struggling with. All of those questions speaks to being able to understand where participants are. So you have those forms. Then you have forms like supervisor assessment, which is for the participant to assess people who were put in charge for the day. Were they helpful? Were the rules conducive? When there was an emergency, did they handle it well? All of that are ways of assessing. Then peer observations. How do you get the other participants in class to also contribute and give feedback on the program? Very important. So if you use these methods, self-evaluation, supervisor assessment, peer observation, it's easy for you to be able to start to see where you need to reinforce in a training. The 4th level now is on whether processes that are responsible for change are driving the outcomes of a particular training. Remember what we said, that if, for example, you had a team of people who were selling products that were being imported, and for one reason, government decides to ban importation, how would that business be able to cope? Because their result was heavily dependent on economic conditions. Heavily dependent on economic conditions. So it's very, very easy to apply these things. And I am really looking forward to when we ask the Q&A, if there will be more questions on how to apply. So for the people who are on the call at the moment, how many of this will you apply? Okay, I'm going into the comment section. I want to see who is going to apply what. How many of this that we have talked about so far are we going to apply? Okay, please drop comments for me there. I'll come and check it. Okay. Many apologies. I'm trying to flip, but my screen is not responding. Okay. One second, please. My screen is not responding. Okay. Okay. All right. So we've discussed the 4 levels so far. 1 is the level of satisfaction. 2 is the level of learning. 3 is the level of impact on behavior, if there is any notable change as a result of that. And now we're going to level 5. This is where we do the actual calculations. The actual calculations. So we have an example here that I'd like us to consider together. Training helps to increase the average employee's productivity from 30 sunglasses to 35 sunglasses in an hour. If we have a situation whereby each employee receives an hourly rate of 12 naira and then over 100 8-hour working days, training will result in 1,593.6 increase in productivity per all staff, or 15,936 for all 10 staff over a 100-day period. So at the level of return on investment for training, you're looking at the hard numbers. You're looking at improvements and you're trying to trace or anchor what the development or the progress or the improvement is what's causing it. What's causing it? Okay. Please, as much as possible, when you're calculating this, calculate your answer in percentages. So let's give an example. Monetary benefits, like in this example, is 1,250, whereas the training cost is 200. And you do all of that multiplied by 100 so as to get it in percentage. Okay. At the end of the day, this particular calculation has an ROI of 59.36%. What does that mean? It means that the training was worthwhile. That the training resulted in increased profit for the company. Okay. I'm going into the comment section now to see if there are any questions or any comments, so that before we move on, we can quickly take those comments. Everyone, I'm back. Many apologies. The internet is just been. I'll just reshare. Please, can you kindly enable me to share my screen? Please kindly confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. So as I was saying before the internet threw me off, we want to just look at the whole of training effectiveness. And you're going to start by looking at, first step will be, what are the training needs? What did you identify? Why are we training? What exactly are we trying to fix? Who are we training? What are we training them? Once you've been able to identify those needs, the next thing is to run a small pre-training assessment on the individuals that we want to train. In the pre-training assessment, we're trying to find out how much do they know about the topic, where are the pain points. Once that information has been gotten, the next thing will be to actually deploy the training itself. Can you hear me? Deploy the training itself. And in deploying the training itself, you want to do some intermediate training evaluations or training assessments while deploying the training, so that if there are any areas that needs to be improved, it can quickly be identified and it can be incorporated into the training. Once the training is over, you will now do your post-training assessment. All of this is referred to as training effectiveness measure, just to be able to ensure that what people are getting trained on is actually impactful at the end of the day. An easiest way to measure the return on investment of a training program is using this training effectiveness measurement. But there are some other things that you can use. You can use a survey that will help you quickly implement a survey. A lot of platforms are available now, a lot of commercial platforms. This would help you to automatically, to automate the process of dispensing the survey, getting feedback. It can even help process the results as quickly as possible. All of this would go a long way in assisting with observations of how that training could have been done better and generating data to use as our report for participants' reaction, so that reporting is no longer just saying it was fine, but then you'll be able to use data to support that report. How do you evaluate a training program? How do you evaluate a training program? I'm seeing some comments in the comment section. I just want to check that. Oh, okay. All right, thank you. I saw that, so everyone can hear me fine. How then do you evaluate a training program? What are the things that will help you to ensure that a training program is very helpful? Now, the first part of it is that when you do a return on investment calculation for a training, what you're doing is that you're ensuring that your programs have continuity, your learnings have continuity. And it's a very simple strategy, simple and yet effective. If management approves the budget for a particular training or a particular initiative to be run, and you are able to accurately measure the impact of that training on the workforce, the improvements that training is enabling within the organization, it would ensure that you have continuous funding or maybe even increased funding. Such increased funding will be very helpful in ensuring that the training program does not end. Because, again, in an economic downturn, the first thing people look at cutting off is how much money are we spending? How much money are we spending? And how quickly can they cut that off? When you measure the return on your investments for trainings, it will help you to, as an individual, thrive in the L&D function, because it simply means that you have gone beyond being able to put together a nice and interesting PowerPoint to being able to enable the workforce unlock their own potential. And how do they unlock their own potential? They unlock their own potential in the sense that they are able to self-report on the trainings that they've gone. Those things that they are reporting on has an immediate impact, has a clear value on the organization strategy. One would use that as a basis for building relationships with key people in the organization. Because once the C-suite, and usually that's a challenge with many HR programs, you find it difficult to get sponsorship from the executive team. And why do we find it difficult to get sponsorship? Because the executive team, they don't understand what we're doing. They feel it's just fuzzy. It's maybe it's warm, touchy-feely, because there is no hard numbers behind that. But what they hear is that HR people are always requisitioning for money for training. It would be great that when it comes to reporting on those training and the monies that have been expended, one is able to indicate that there has been progress. They have been able to use such trainings to ensure that the organization is in a much, much better place when it comes to that. So let me share with you a very simple model for how to evaluate a training. Very simple model. If you are in the session, please feel free to snap, take a screenshot of this slide that I'm sharing now. The first step is, please evaluate the learner's reaction to the learning. Is it a thumbs up? Is it a 5-star rating? Is it a 4-star rating? Second, and this is done in the session. Second, measure what was learned during the training. Thirdly, assess whether or not behavior has changed as a result of the training. This question can be coined to say, oh, now that you have learned XY, what will you do? If there is any change in behavior, participants will respond by saying, oh, going forward, I will. Then the last step is to evaluate the impact of your program on business results. So for example, are we now able to sell more? In selling more, have we increased the profitability across board or across the team or across the unit? This is a very simple way of evaluating a training program. Generally, you have very different models. There are at least 5 known models. But you want to just ask, is this training successful? Did the participant learn? What did they learn? What do they plan to do with the material? What skills, knowledge, or attitudes have changed? And by how much have those attitudes changed? Was there a behavior change? When you now talk about business impact, the on-the-job application, is it measurable? Is the value of the program, so if the training cost us maybe 15 million, did the results that we get, maybe now that we've spent 15 million on training and then the sales team are back, but based on that training that they've gone for, our profit margins moved by 10% as a result of the sales team pushing harder. Being able to measure our return is very, very key in being able to show the business case for why some training should continue. And again, you can also use return on investment to show the business case on why some trainings should be scrapped, why some trainings are not impactful. It's always very important that we as HR leaders are able to get very, very intimately aware of what the organizations we're supporting and what their core business is. once we understand what the core business is, because we're so close to the organization, we're so close to the heart of what is going on, we will be able to come up with training programs that address the pain points of the organization. And beyond coming up with training programs, we'll be able to measure accurately what those results should be or should look like. Many apologies. Something went wrong with my screen. I couldn't see what was that. Okay. So as we've seen so far, there are a number of different evaluation methods, but the most effective one is using the 4-level approach. The 5th level of it would be the 4-level approach for the Kirkpatrick model, which would be first, the level 1 is reaction, level 2 is learning, level 3 is behavioral change, and then level 4 is impact, business impact. But to put the icing on that, it would be to now say, beyond the behavioral impact, in Naira and Kobo terms, what has moved? It's very important that we understand that if you're applying a model of training evaluation, please don't look at it in isolation of other important factors like environmental, economic environmental change, government regulations as it affects that particular business, regulators as well in that industry. You want to be very careful in being able to ensure that you have looked at every actor that could have an impact on the results that organization has to share. Thank you all very much. It's been a very interesting conversation talking about return on investment and evaluation of trainings. I hope that going forward, we would be able to apply this more and more in our roles in our different organizations. Thank you all very much. If there are questions, please kindly send in the questions either via chat or with the P4P team so that we can take those questions and use them to better explain any gray areas. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, our facilitator, for today. It's been a very insightful session, intensive, practical, as we all thought it would be. So as the facilitator has said, any questions from any of our participants, you can unmute your mic and speak now, or you can
Thank you very much, Neymar. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. So you can unmute your mic or type it in the chat box. Have a few minutes for our facilitator to attend to our questions. So, facilitator, I think you have a comment in the chat box from Mr. Joel.
Okay, let me check up on that. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Bose, Bayo, Yamaka, Gloria. Any questions for our facilitator?
Hello, this is Bose, and many thanks to our facilitator for a very, very impactful session. I think it was quite detailed. I was able to pick many things from this session that I'll be able to deploy to to my work going forward. But then I wanted to ask, I know that it's easy for us to be able to calculate very easily ROI for units that, what they do is a bit measurable and is objective. But then if you have to now look at, for example, other teams or other units that whose deliverables or what they do are not as specific as the people in the sales team, for example. What other, I know that the parameters are very clear, but then how do we navigate that? And moreover, she mentioned the use of data. So even if you still want to do a presentation to the board to justify the for a particular training, but then you don't have sufficient data to be able to work on that. So how do we navigate those areas? I mean, those are some of the thoughts that come to mind right away. So once again, thank you so much for an amazing program. Appreciate it.
Hi, Tony. Did you hear Bosse? Are you there? Okay, it seems she's stepped out a bit. Network issues. Thank you, Bosse, for let's just hold on a second for her if she'll be able to rejoin us.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, so before she joins us, like it was shared in our mails, subscription to this webinar gives us the privilege to access our Let's Read platform, which I spoke earlier in the program. So it's a platform where we basically share the summaries of some of the most inspirational, challenging books recent times, every day of the weekday. And so because of your subscription for this program, you would have a 2 weeks free access to that platform, starting from tomorrow, I believe. So for the next 2 weeks, every morning will be shared books on different categories, summaries basically of the book. So books that are usually over 100 pages, 200 pages, they are summarized into a maximum of about 7-8 pages, which basically makes it easy for us to go through in about 15, maximum 20 minutes. So if it's something that you would love to continue after that point, then there's a subscription plan to be on that platform. Also, our webinars, henceforth, also in subscription models. There were a few of us who weren't able to make it to this session today, but indicated interest in the recordings. So they can get the recordings at the same subscription price. And there's also a model where we can be in the webinar, but also want the recording afterwards. It's a subscription plan that is a little bit higher than 5,000. I think that's about 6,000 for that plan. So subscription for our webinar programs have different models. so much so that we can even subscribe for a lengthy plans, monthly plans. Okay, Bosse have to go. Thank you very much, Bosse. Thank you so much for joining in. The materials would be shared with us earlier announced. Okay, so like I said, the lengthy plans, there are monthly plans, there are there's even a yearly plan if we so wish to subscribe to that package. So we can go on our website, P4PETalks.pp.co, and check those plans out. Our facilitator unfortunately cannot join us again. So I would like to, on behalf of P4P Institute, say a huge thank you to everyone for joining in this session. I'm sure that we all were all really educated and impacted by the teaching of our facilitator today, like I was. Thank you so much, everyone. There's another webinar session that will be coming up next week. We'll be shared the details via mail. Going forward. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.